I'm here in medias res, in sunny.
Right, so quick recap. I flew to Mexico City for a 3-week holiday. I saw the sights in the city and then travelled south to the Pacific coast. I made a separate video with my general thoughts on Mexico. This video is about a very specific thought. One thing you can't miss in Mexico are the churches. Puebla and Cholula are said to have a church for every day of the year, and they might have. Many of them are very beautiful, and there'll always be a spectacular church on the main square. Inside, the churches are honestly very different to what I'm used to. I'm not a believer, but inevitably I have spent a fair length of time in churches of various services and just as a tourist. The churches I'm familiar with are mostly European Protestant churches, though, rather than Catholic churches. I find the Mexican churches to be more colourful, filled with strange and sometimes gaudy iconography. There is a much greater emphasis on saints and local traditions. Every church has a variety of saints that you can pray to and make offerings, and you can choose the saint whose help you need the most as the target of your prayers. There are also local traditions of worshipping a particular saint. I consider myself a good tourist who reads his guidebooks and those little plaques and takes an interest in cultures and traditions, so I'm here for this stuff. There are lots of saints in most churches, and working out who they are, why they are there, and what they represent can be a challenge. I still have no idea what some of these guys did to wind up here. Some saints I did see quite a lot though, and you get to know who they are and what their deal is. The time I was there overlapped with the pandemic, so I definitely started to notice San Blaise around. St. Blaise was a physician who died in 316 AD in Turkey. According to the Acts of St. Blaise, written 400 years after his death, while St. Blaise was being taken into custody, a distraught mother whose only child was choking on a fishbone threw herself at his feet and implored his intercession. Touched by her grief, he offered up his prayers and the child was cured. So, St. Blaise is invoked for protection against injuries and illnesses of the throat, or to cure a loved one. There is actually a sacrament for the blessings of the throat in the Roman Catholic Church, normally celebrated on February the 3rd, the feast day of St. Blaise. If your cause is truly desperate and you think no one will hear you, you can pray to San Judas. You see, there were actually 2 of the 12 disciples called Judas. There was Judas Iscariot, the betrayer, and Judas Thaddeus, who did nothing wrong and was a good man, but is now tarred by association with the betrayer. Judas Thaddeus is often forgotten and overlooked, so he looks out for those in a similar situation. He's the patron saint of addicts and the down and out, because only the most desperate man would pray to Judas. You can find Judas Thaddeus in every Mexican church if you look for him. He's traditionally depicted with a green tunic, a medallion, and often a tongue of flame coming out of his forehead, which represents the Holy Spirit entering his body at Pentecost. He's a popular figure in Mexico with quite a following, usually called San Judito, Little Saint Judas. You probably need a little bit more cultural context for these memes, but in Mexico City, these are killing it. If you're looking for love, then you want St. Anthony to pray to, I mean. The Cathedral of Guadalupe is dedicated to the Virgin Mary because a local indigenous man called Juan Diego Cuauhtlahuatzin saw her in a vision. There is a cloak that is traditionally said to be Juan Diego's, and upon which the image of the Virgin is said to have been miraculously imprinted as proof of the authenticity of his visions. The Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe is now one of the world's most major Christian pilgrimage destinations, with 22 million visitors in 2010. Juan Diego is the first Catholic saint indigenous to the Americas, so people of indigenous descent, of whom there are many in Mexico, any way you count it, can look at the pantheon of saints and see that they too have a saint. I was surprised to learn that after being born in 1474 and receiving miraculous visions from 1531, he died in 1548 and was then canonized and inducted into the Pantheon of Saints by John Paul II in 2002, the age of colour photography, although honestly the only picture I could find is this one, where the Pope seems to be sleeping through the ceremony, which is relatable AF. But, you know, it's nice to see the church change with the times. Better late than never. All aboard and the representation bandwagon is off. Indigenous people can be saints too now. What a time to be alive. If that's all a bit heavy and political and whatnot, and you just want your Amazon Prime to arrive on time, try San Expedito. His name means Saint Expedited, and he's the patron saint of urgent and timely actions, doing things today and the post. The day he decided to become a Christian, the devil took the form of a crow and told him that he could become a Christian tomorrow. San Expedito stamped on the crow and killed it, declaring, "I'll be a Christian today." Several churches claim the bones of San Expedito because sometimes when relics are shipped in the post with expedited written on the package, they're then thought to be the relics of San Expedito by the recipients. There are a few accounts of similar stories. One is in France in 1781. Some relics were sent through the post. The senders had written Expedit on the case to ensure fast delivery of the remains. The nuns assumed that Expedit was the name of the martyr and prayed for his intercession. When their prayers were answered, his veneration spread rapidly through France and onto other Roman Catholic countries. This is all great stuff and I'm here for it, but one of these stories just hits a bit different, and that's the story of St. James. I first found St. James in the church of Santiago de Tlatelolco, next to some surviving Aztec ruins, which were honestly more interesting to me at the time. It was just a church like so many others. Interesting building, but not that spectacular. I walked in to take a look and was struck by the statue of the Apostle St. James, or Santiago in Spanish, and the altarpiece depicting St. James riding into battle in horseback with his sword held high. I read the little plaques around the church and thought it was interesting. Then I did a little bit more research because I was interested, and it slightly coincided with some of my reading material anyway. And then I got totally obsessed with this story, and something about it just broke me. For about 6 months, everyone I met was treated to a lecture about St. James, whether they wanted one or not. So gather round for the tale of St. James, the story that made me so obsessed I read everything from medieval Latin to modern historians, then downloaded animation software, wrote a script, and learned how to make YouTube videos just so I could more efficiently lecture people about this thing. This is the story of who St. James is, what he represents, and how he came to be worshipped in Mexico in general, and in the Church of Santiago de Tlatelolco in particular. Are you ready?